God, where to even begin with this one? Hey, Kinga here. If you're on a personal development, spiritual development journey, and you are either at present undergoing a spiritual awakening, or you have recently undergone one, or you think you might be on the cusp of one, or you just want to know what it is, today's video is a little bit more of a personal deep dive as I share my own story of my own spiritual awakening when I was 24. This was in 2014. This is different than a spiritual ascension. That's going to be touched on a little later on in a different video. To take it all the way back, ever since I was a kid, I always felt somewhat different in ways, not entirely like a black sheep, but truly for as long as I can remember, looking all the way back to childhood, I felt like I had a different mindset than most in the sense of believing that anything was possible. When I was super young, like I would say even 12 and under, even now, I have a very active imagination, but especially preteens, I was, as many kids do, playing like princes and princesses, witches and wizards, and this, that, and the other. And so my creativity knew no bounds, is what I'm trying to say. When I was 11, I wanted to be an actor. So by the time that I actually got into some classes and I was able to convince my parents that this is what I really wanted to do, from 13 to 25, I had a 12-year run in the film industry pursuing a career as an actor. And while it never fully took off as, going to Hollywood or anything like that, I did book some roles and I did experience what it was like to be a working actor. The point of that is, which was my first career and my first sense of identity, was I was able to persevere so long in that very difficult industry where most people hear the word no more times in a single year than most people ever will in a lifetime. So you develop a pretty thick skin and you get to know rejection real well. But I remember just so many connections over those 12 years where doubt would seep into people's minds. And I get how it happens, understandably so. But I never got that jaded chip on my shoulder or became cynical and afraid and doubtful that it just never was going to pan out for me. Even from such a young age, I always was of the mindset that there's no way that you could persevere and stick with something and keep just fucking going and not at some point, experience a taste of what it's like to be successful towards that thing. May not be the ultimate end goal and like the pinnacle of whatever we deem as being successful at XYZ as like humanly possible, but again, there's just no way that you could stick with something long enough and not have it pan out in some way. And I was able to transcend that mindset across pretty much everything that I did and not allow myself to be swayed and get down on myself. Like there'd be moments of, fluctuating emotions and everything, but that was like my current, like that guiding thread that I was always able to come back to. And it just felt so real and natural and right that I became this inspirer in my group of friends, like the eternal optimist, the I can do anything type of personality. And I genuinely feel like if I choose to go after something, I really can do something, but also not just a concrete material, like what we can see, touch, feel, hear, smell, taste, with our five senses, but also just that sense of anything was possible with a sense of like awe, mysticism, magic. Now, while I know that I felt like I was on my own for so long of my youth, I am curious to know if you're watching this and you felt like you were the same in childhood, type down in the chat below. I was like that too when I was a kid, or I'm like that too now, because I do find we feel that sense of connection, power in numbers. So do leave a comment down below. I used to be an atheist, so it wasn't even like believing in a higher power per se. but just believing, I mean, I suppose it could be akin to believing in a higher power. However, I didn't put any type of a label on it because that's not exactly the language that resonated with me at that time. So to dive a little bit deeper into that era, I can't remember how old I was, but I went to catechism, which is basically like Catholic church school, in addition to like my regular public school. And I don't know, did that for 2 years, 3 years. I'm really not sure, maybe shorter. It seems like not even part of my life because I was so not not aligned with it. It wasn't my decision. And it's not like my family is religious. Um, Even my mom considers herself spiritual. And the only two things that we would do per year that were considered sort of traditional, if you will, were on Easter. My mom takes a little Easter wicker basket of food and gets it blessed at the church. So we have some blessed food. And then on Christmas holidays, the only meat that we would be eating is fish. So no other animal meats. I guess that's a traditional European or Polish thing. In any case, that was as far as like tradition and religion went, but we wouldn't pray. We wouldn't go to church on Sundays. We didn't talk about God or any other type of higher power, like literally nothing. And so one day, and I don't know, I was 10, 12, something like that. My mom, I remember we were in this like cathedral type looking thing, which I guess was like this additional church school, where my mom one day to me and my sister was like, "Oh, like we have a surprise for you." And we're like, "Oh, what's a surprise?" And she's like, "This is it." I'm like, "What the fuck?" I just remember this older blue lady in a navy blue dress suit and just chatting with my mom. And I'm like, I don't even know what the hell is going on here. So we went like twice a week to this 2 or 3 hour catechism on top of just like regular day school, Monday to Friday at a regular public school. And I always felt other than. I felt like an outcast. Um, I wouldn't say that I was bullied per se, because I don't have any concrete memories of any of the other kids being like really cruel to me or anything like that. But what I remember is just really not fitting in for whatever reason. And I got through the catechism and you wear your puffy white dress. It's like a, if you're not familiar with like what a communion is, it's basically like imagine like a bride's dress basically like on a kid. So you just feel like a princess. And back in the 90s, it's just like poofy sleeves, like a lot of just like fanned out silk. It's a whole thing, but I digress. It's pretty funny to look back on the pictures. Maybe I'll try to find one and pop it up there somewhere for you to have a laugh at. But basically we just did it to dress up and you feel all fancy for the moment. And then you get your little like bread thing. The, priest puts it on your tongue, you eat it, and then la da dee, la da da, you have your communion. That's it. So to me, it didn't mean anything. I don't know, because after that, it was like, it was just done. It was like that chapter of life had closed and we just moved on. And so since that time, I was an atheist because when you don't align with something, whether you're a kid or an adult or a teen or whatever, you rebel. So I was triggered by the word God because I'm like, what is God? Like, because this catechism I felt was forced upon me as a kid, I had absolutely no say in it. I rebelled against anything that had to do with that. And I didn't really understand why that, like, I didn't even like to hear or say the word God. Um, so that kind of just paints a little bit of context that eventually I'm just like living life throughout my teens and my early 20s. And then I move out to a place on my own for the first time when I was 24. No roommate, no nothing, just on my own. And my mom, story of my spiritual awakening now, my mom gifts me as a housewarming gift the book The Secret. Now, yes, I know it's a huge cliche in the spiritual community because it's always the freaking gateway book that gets people to being, into like law of attraction. manifestation, spirituality, everything like that. But I love me a good cliche, so I can fuck with that. I don't care. Anyhow, I remember my mom giving me this book. My mom's like Polish, and I have no idea. That's not to say Polish people don't know about the book The Secret, but it was written by this Australian woman, Shonda Rhimes, who interviewed a bunch of people, Jack Canfield, I think it is, Bob Proctor, Joe Dispenza, Lisa Nichols, and several other people that contributed to the space that were voices and thought leaders in this space of energy work. Collecting my thoughts. Right. So it's not that like my mom could not have possibly heard of this book, but I just had no idea how she heard of this book, nor how I had heard of this book. It was the weirdest thing. So my mom gives me The Secret, and I remember being like, wow, how did you know that I would be interested in this? Like, how did you even know about it? Like, even to this day, I still don't know how she knows about it. But also, I don't know how I knew about it. To this day, it's like, no one ever told me about it. I never watched a show or a movie about it. I didn't have any friends talking about spirituality in any sense. It was like this knowing. Like, I just had this inner knowing that this book existed, and I wanted to read it. I just always felt like I wanted to read this book. And I'm like, how the fuck do I know about this book? How does my mom know about this book? Like Polish Anna. I have no idea. So anyways, I read this book and I am like jaw dropped almost, because to circle back to that frame of mind that I always had of just this sense of magic and awe and mysticism and inspiration, like anything was possible, not just with a practical, tactical mindset, but just universal forces were just like always kind of moving in the background, organizing things. It's just this deep knowing, which is really hard to articulate. A feeling is hard to articulate and knowing because all language is limited. But when I read this book and I was reading all of the anecdotes and everything that was in The Secret, this was the first time in my life at 24 that I even realized that anyone out in the world on planet Earth thought like me, had the same worldview, paradigm, overcame skepticism, limiting beliefs, which is natural for the mind to think, to doubt, to have critical thought, judgment, of course, and we can choose our beliefs. And so as I'm reading, not just like one person having the same frame of view that I did, but a whole slew of people and thought leaders, researchers, scientists, authors, lecturers, people from seemingly very different walks of life, but all coming together to contribute to this work of art, this book called The Secret. And I'm like, and I'm getting chills, like even just expressing this, like, I know the fucking secret. I know the secret. Uh, so it wasn't anything that I needed to be convinced of or was learning anew per se. I did go deeper and glean, insights, of course, from the book, but it was like they were speaking my language in a sense. And my just entire being, my psyche, just like energetically just blew wide open as to just what was possible, but also just that sense of like, so it's not just fucking me. It's not just me living in la la land. Not that I thought that I was, because I was experiencing my versions of success with perseverance and effort and action, but as well as just having right thought, let's say. But I just knew that the way that my mindset was serving me so well, and the feeling that I got was just so, I just feel alive. I feel vibrant. I feel energized. I really feel like I could do anything if I choose to do that thing. And I could see how other people's mindset of doubt, limitation, fear was holding them back tremendously. And through the following years of continuing on the spiritual path, I started to do work around just forgiveness, releasing resentment, doing the work to realize that it wasn't about the word God or religion or spirituality or lack thereof, whatever. People will call this greater power, universal intelligence, source energy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the name is. It doesn't matter what you subscribe to. We're all working with this cosmic, universal life force energy, to give the name a sentence, that is beyond our understanding. It's like the phenomena of the universe. We are spiritual beings having this human experience, as I'm sure you've heard that saying before. There is so much that we do know and so much that we are continuing to uncover and discover and assign language to and reasoning to, because the mind loves concrete footing. We love to place labels on things, place concepts, ideas into this neat little tidy box so we can make sense of it and wrap our minds around it. And if anything is outside of that making sense of, we immediately brush it to the side. We're skeptical, and we're too much in this 3D material realm of exactly what we can experience with our limited five senses, keyword being limited, important as they are, because that's how we experience the world and environment around us and how we take in information and make sense of everything. But like, do we forget so easily we have a 1 in 400 trillion chance to be a human incarnate on planet Earth? One, fucking wild. Two, on the coattails of that first fun fact, we're on a spinning, flying rock in our own galaxy of the Milky Way that is but one of, my God, in how many galaxies in the universe? And that is just the observable known universe, by the way. What is infinity? Does the universe have edges? Black holes are a whole other thing. Like, when you get into quantum physics and sciences, that is a whole other thing. And some people will wave the flag of science, 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 as if it's like the end all be all. Well, science has changed so many times. Things that we had deemed as being scientific fact have over time been disproven as new information, and more enhanced technology has been invented and come about. And so to lean on science, but as well as continue to be open-minded and explorative of the unknown, to not be so afraid of it and afraid of uncertainty, but to know that any newness that we desire in our life can only be created from the unknown. If things were only certain and we knew exactly how things were going to come about, when they were going to come about, well, if we had that information given and granted, it would already be part of our known reality. We would be able to have it on a timeline of this unfolded, this date, this time period, with the unfolding of these specific events. But then that thing would already, again, be a part of our current life experience as it stands here today in the present now. And so any type of change that we want in our life, it has to be created from a new sequence of events. The sequence that we not only do not know, but we cannot know. Things have to come to unfold as a surprise. That is what manifestation is. It's things coming to manifest, things coming to fruition. So popular culture has completely warped this term manifestation, and it is not just woo-woo, which I hate that word anyway. I hate that word anyways. I've said it before, because it just has this negative connotation, like this fluffy, airy, fairy, whatever. But energy, frequency is measurable and proven in science to actually be forces at work that are beyond our limited perception of the five senses. And so there are around me, around you, as you're watching this video, as I'm speaking now, waves of light that we cannot see. There are audio waves that we cannot perceive with the sound range that is perceptible to the human ear. Even taking a moment to contemplate on all these truths and facts, because again, with specific sensitive instruments, we can indeed prove that there are these additional frequencies that are not perceptible to us right here and right now. Like, even right now, as you look around your space where you are, what we see with the human eye is only 0.0038% of the spectrum of visible light, which is, again, fucking wild. So that's not even half a percent, much less 1%. Can you imagine if we were able to take in everything, like the full array of everything? We wouldn't be able to handle it. It would be so much sensory overload. Like, I think we would combust, like straight up. Um, so we're designed specially to be able to experience life on planet Earth. But I find it absolutely fascinating to the nth degree to see just what we can create playing with these universal forces. And I've had things come to manifest, sometimes in as few as 3 days, sometimes in as long, because time is a construct, in as long, let's say, as 3 years. Nevertheless, when those manifestations at long last came to unfold in my reality, I was floored because I recognized them as my manifestation because I'd created them first in my mind. I wrote about them, I journaled about them, I visualized them, I felt into them over and over and over again. And then I surrendered and I touched back into them. I felt back into them. I saw it in my mind using my powerful imaginal faculties. And over time, in ways that I could never have anticipated, things just came to unfold. And I'm like, holy fuck, this is exactly what I designed, essentially. This is what I created. And so if you're able to let go, and this is going to be the hardest part, the when and the how, all you and I are in charge of is the what we want, why we want it, but not the when it's going to come about, and the how it's going to happen. The universe doesn't wear a watch. That's why it's called divine timing, cosmic timing. And also, there's this term called sofa metaphysics in the spiritual community where it's like kind of funny because people think that manifestation is just wishing things are going to happen. They're going to fall out of the sky while you sit on your couch and eat Cheetos and watch Netflix and binge pints of ice cream along with your shows. Now, good times. Good times were had. But if you think of a manifestation and like a result, what is that a part of? Your internal world or the external world? Well, it's part of an external world, having some type of result, some type of achievement, some type of goal being met, reached, accomplished. But what is your desire? What is your ideal? What is your wish, your vision, your inner self, like that expression that's yearning to be brought out? Well, inner world or outer world is part of your inner world. Your slides, if you will, that you're creating, like the same way that if you put a roll of film in a projector, it's several still frames, slides that are being moved through so quickly that it brings this visual of movement and motion to create that motion picture. We have these slides, these target slides, if you will, in our mind, these visions that we want to bring into reality. So how are we going to bridge the gap between what we wish to experience in our inner world and then how we can actually bring that about in our outer world? Well, the bridge between the two is action. So it's not just energetic manifestation, while that is a large component, but it is also physical action, inspired action, not pushing, not hustling, not grinding, putting effort, yes, putting intention, yes, but does it have to be hard? You tell me. Does it? Most people think it does. Does it? Also, being a human on planet Earth, we have these physical bodies. How outstandingly boring and dull would it be, even if you could manifest things, let's say, just using the power of your mind and just like a snap of your fingers, have literally everything you wanted ever, just at the drop of a hat with a thought. Conjure it with a thought. you would be so bored out of your skull. Like you wouldn't have to do anything, you wouldn't have to go anywhere. So part of being in this like meat suit, which is such a weird term and I never use it, even though it's like the spiritual community, speaks to this all the time, that we're like these souls in like a meat sack, just floating around on this flying rock in space. But part of being human is to do. Like, yes, we're human beings. Yes, be, exist. That is enough and more than enough a lot of the time. But part of the joy of expressing ourselves as this human form is doing and having that delayed gratification. Because also imagine when we get frustrated, like, why is my manifestation not coming through? Why is it taking so long? Impatience, doubt, skepticism. Well, a lot of the thoughts that people have are quite negative and unserving. So there is such a thing as a time delay. Even though it's a construct, there is a time delay because of resonant frequency. Things will come to us quickly if we have brain and body coherence of heart and mind, energetically radiating that same frequency as our desires. So everything has its own energy. But a lot of the time, the state that we're embodying is one that is negative and not beneficial, quite harmful sometimes, given a long enough time horizon. But the thing is, that's not our true self. Our true self is whole, loving, kind, unified, but we have this sense of being separate from everything, the sense of separation that we create with our mental faculties when they're not mastered. That comes with personal development. And so even those negative, unserving thoughts, well, we're also not fully on that frequency either because it goes against our true natural nature. So this time delay occurs. Imagine if every time you had a negative thought that it would happen and unfold instantly. That would be pretty fucking horrible. So remember that time delays are important. And it'll also give us time to consistently maintain and sustain our more positive, beneficial, elevated frequency to both energetically attract and actionably create that which we desire and find that genuine sense of unity as we shift out of that sense of separation. And then eventually your manifestation will unfold and you will get that thing, you will meet that person, you will have this event, so on and so on. And that's when those unknown events, also called quantum events, where, what you were conjuring up, writing about, visualizing, feeling into, imagining, creating, attracting, it will be magnetized into your three-dimensional life experience. So that was quite a journey that we just went on. I had a few touch points that I wanted to connect on, which I believe that I did, and then I just riffed for a bit. So that brings us to present day. It's been 11 years now of the spiritual journey, and it's been so interesting. So interesting. I will wrap this up here, but for the next video, keep an eye out, because while this video was a more personal story about my spiritual awakening, the next video will be about my spiritual ascension. So the awakening has already happened. The ascension comes through a dark night of the soul, ego death. Some people call it the valley of death, where you're broken open. Shell of yourself, tower moment. Yeah, it goes by many names. I'll leave that cliffhanger there, but it has catapulted me now into this next phase of life. So I'll stop babbling on. But I know that I'm not the only person that The Secret was a gateway book to when it comes to our spiritual awakening. So if you shared the same experience, type in the comments below, The Secret was my spiritual awakening gateway book too. Check out my online program if you'd like to go deeper, Zen High Performance Method. All the links that you need down below. You can jump straight to the free value call with yours truly, link down below as well. 2025 is yours to create, and the years beyond as well. If you're looking to harness that fresh start and both energetically attract and actionably create the desired reality that you seek, then let's have a conversation. And I'd love to be able to support you through that leg of your journey. But until next time, my friends, I will catch you in the next one. Peace. All right, done. Hey, Kinga here. And if you are on a God, why am I talking so weird? Hey, Kinga. Kinga. Can I say my own name?